2020, it's been a pleasure, but now it's time to say goodbye. 2020, it's been a pleasure, but now it's time to say goodbye. 2020, it's been a pleasure, but now it's time to say goodbye. Where do we even start? I'll be splitting these lessons that I have learned into physical and mental health, love and relationships, career and productivity, and finally, life in general. Now, all the things that I'll be mentioning are things that have been true for me and for my life. My truths may not be your truths because we are all different, but I personally find value in hearing other people's life lessons, and I think it's interesting regardless of whether or not I can resonate with it personally. So let's get into it. Taking care of yourself is one of the most selfless things that you can do. So I define self-care as intentionally taking steps, big or small, to improve your physical and mental health. So essentially just taking care of yourself like you're someone you care about. So if I feel good physically, mentally, not only is that great for me, but I also become a better friend and daughter and partner and just person overall. So it's a win-win for everyone. And then the opposite of that is true as well. If I don't feel good about myself, then that'll go out on those around me. Now, as I was looking into this, I found a couple of studies on the correlation between being happy with ourselves and how that translates to how we treat others, and I thought that it was really interesting, and I think that you should look into it. And like I said, I'm talking big and small steps here, so it could be anything from exercising to deciding to go to therapy. So as an example, some of you may know this by now, I have started walking quite a lot and I'm enjoying it a lot, and after those walks I sometimes call like a family member or whatnot, and they can always tell if I have been walking because I just sound happier on the phone, and as a result the conversation just becomes more pleasant. Another thing I learned is how great I am at negative self-talk, which goes against the self-love thing that I was just talking about. But hey, I'm still figuring all this out of myself. And I did make an entire video a few months ago talking about this topic specifically, and I will leave the link for that up here somewhere. Now, one of the more recent lessons is that the problem with negative self-talk, I noticed, isn't just that I'm putting myself down in that moment, but that eventually, once you talk down on yourself enough times, you start to really believe the things that you are saying and thinking about yourself so much that you start to identify yourself with those things. If I keep telling myself that, let's take an example, like I'm just really lazy or I'm really not handy, I'm reinforcing those ideas about myself, which will then affect my confidence and emotions around that specific topic. And then as a consequence, I'm also limiting my own growth and my opportunity to learn. So let's take the I'm really not handy example, and let's say that that is something that I tend to tell myself a lot, which, spoiler alert, it is. If then I am faced with a problem that requires me to be handy, it's most likely that I will give up before even trying to fix the problem because I identify so strongly with not being handy. And now I can't exactly say that this is something that I've learned, but I've been reminded of how important it is to pay attention to your thoughts, because it's your thoughts that create your reality. You know, I don't know how many problems I've encountered in this apartment so far, and each time my very first thought has always been, I will not be able to fix this. But once I've taken a step back and acknowledged the negative self-talk, I've decided to give it a try or multiple tries, and so far there isn't a single thing that I haven't been managed to fix. Now let's move on to love and relationships. And again, this is not something new that I have learned, but it's something that has been reinforced even more, and that is that love will not get you anywhere if you are not compatible. And I will just leave it at that. Okay, now let's talk about career and productivity. Structuring, organizing, and planning my life has made it significantly easier and more enjoyable. So as a kid, I was a pretty big tech nerd. I was coding before I even knew what I was doing, so I know for sure that 8-year-old me would have loved how digitalized we are today with all the apps and software and things like that. Adult me is not nearly as big of a nerd. I've mostly viewed most apps and things like that as clutter, admittedly, without even really giving it a chance. But that was until this year when I've grown to really enjoy experimenting with different ways of using them, and it's honestly changed various aspects of my life for the better. I now use apps for pretty much everything, from scheduling my days to grocery lists to personal finance, taking notes, journaling, really my entire life. I do plan on making a dedicated video on this topic pretty soon because it really has had a significant impact on my life, and I don't know, I just feel really put together. And I guess the lesson here is not just to use apps and software, but also to not reject things without giving them a chance, which is something that I always enjoy being reminded of. Now let's talk about networking. So I'm not someone who walks into a room and just owns it. Or maybe that's something that I've just told myself enough times to where I now believe it, referring to point 2 on this list. But I do think I've become pretty decent at reaching out to people who I want to reach out to. Now, I don't particularly like the word networking. I think it's because to me it feels like something that is very robotic, and it's sort of for the same reason I don't like the word job interview. I feel like it just takes the human aspect out of it. I don't know. Anyway, that's besides the point. My point is that you never know what could come out of a situation if you just set your fear for rejection or your ego or whatever it might be aside and just reach out to people. You know, there are thousands, if not millions, of stories of people who took a chance and reached out to someone and it changed their life somehow. And now that does not always happen, of course. Perhaps the only outcome will be an interesting conversation with an interesting person when really you might have wanted more. But even something like that can be really, really inspiring. Or even if you don't even get a reply, which will definitely happen for sure, at the very least you are practicing stepping out of your comfort zone, or even just your email writing skills, which is actually really, really valuable. I do want to say that I really don't believe that you or me or anyone should reach out to people thinking that anyone owes you a reply. Sometimes what you have to say simply is not interesting to that person, or perhaps they cannot find the time, or whatever it might be, is something that we just need to accept. Now, I would say that the lesson here, or rather the realization, I guess, is that I really enjoy connecting with people, and I have receipts on how unexpectedly well it can go if you just take the initiative. So yeah, it's something that I just really want to do more of. Now let's move on and talk about life. So I have learned that I have not allowed myself to have any pure hobbies. Some of the things that used to be just hobbies to me were writing and taking photos and editing. But now, most of the times that I do any of those things, I do it for this channel or for some other platform, which I really enjoy, but it also means that it's no longer just hobbies because it's not things that I'm doing purely for fun. Now, the reason I don't have any pure hobbies, which what I mean by that is simply something that is purely a hobby, isn't because I don't have any interest. Like, there are so many things that I would love to try and spend more time on, but I've had the mindset of it's not important enough because I've kind of felt like doing things just for fun is almost something that is wasteful in today's productivity culture. Like, we relate fun to slacking, or at least that's what I've been doing, I've realized, which, to be clear, isn't something that I actually believe. And now, obviously, this has not been the year where the conditions for having fun have been optimized for most people, given that we have been restricted in a lot of ways. But perhaps that has been the reason that I have been reminded of the value of doing things just for fun. So for next year, depending on how things will look, of course, I have a list of things that I'm going to try out just for fun, and we will see if anything sticks. All right, that was our final little chit chat session for 2020. Thank you all so much for being part of this community this year, and I'm really looking forward to next year. And I would love to know in the comment section, what are the biggest lessons that you have learned this year? Not even the biggest lesson, just any lesson, big or small. And what are your expectations for next year? What do you think life will look like? Let's chat about it in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and Happy New Year.